We're on.
This is Gabe Ignetti.
And this is Carl Pauls. And
we like to, and this is the
Ecomodernist Channel Live. Yep.
Channel Live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
And our first show.
And I just did something wrong with my camera, so let me fix that. Very sorry.
I was getting ready to go into the commercial. By the way, I just remembered. I made a shorter version of that intro. Did I send that to you, Carl?
I need to pick it up.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you today. I'll send it to you today sometime.
Very cool. And I just realized my info box was off. There we go. Everything's looking great. I should share for everyone. I'm going to share my left screen because that's where we're going to talk about what's going on in the news today. Welcome. We have everyone in the Ecomodernist podcast. I'm overloading my audio sources. I might have an echo, but I guess this is the way it's going to have to be because I'm in.
Sounds clear.
Okay, great.
It's not clear to me.
Okay.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on. We're all live.
Okay. All right. So welcome to our sloppy beginning.
and we're gonna try to do a call-in show. Yeah, we're trying to do a call-in show, and I've got the Zoom meeting and the Discord meeting, and they're all routing through my my little
router.
Yeah, my audio mixer here, and it's gonna be a mess for a minute.
You got presets that you could just like bow and just.
Not for this deployment. It's super complicated to do 2 meeting rooms at the same time, and not have an audio loop.
No, I thought what I'm saying is maybe you had to just click and you set it so click everything is like on.
Whose job it is to figure out how to do that. It's my job.
I was gonna say if you can.
Yeah.
It would make things, if you're going to do this every week, it would make things a lot easier.
In my infinite spare time. No, it's all right. But more important things are happening in the world. And so I want us to get to those. So I'm going to clear out some of my garbage browser windows, and we're just going to talk and share about the opportunity that nuclear has at the Conference of Parties. COP, or the Conference of Parties, is a meeting between all of the UN countries who are ratifying the Paris Accords. And what's coming up this winter in the UK, at Glasgow, is that right? Is COP 26. So it's the 26th Conference of the Parties. And we're trying to make sure that nuclear is not ignored at COP26. So far, there has been a great deal of trepidation about nuclear participating in COP26, and a lot of the nuclear NGOs were not invited to the green zone, and that's the public zone where they could present and they could talk to everyone about nuclear. So there's been some progress. We've got the UK committing to 4 or 6 new nuclear reactors. We've got 10 countries in the EU demanding that nuclear be included in the sustainable taxonomy. And we have advocates on the ground who are going to be in the green zone. I've heard from the Stand Up for Nuclear, the Nuclear Pride Coalition, that they are going to find a way into the green zone. It's going to be pretty exciting. So, does anyone have anyone want to say hi from the Zoom call? There's Gabe, of course. And if you don't feel like saying hi, no problem. But just know that we're broadcasting everywhere. Feel free to speak up. A bunch of great organizers. We've got four other organizers here on the line. They're just being shy. They'll pipe up when it's time. So I'm going to drop hey, go ahead.
I got one thing really quick, Paul. I don't know if you noticed that I'd thrown on our Facebook website about, I believe I did anyway, the Queen of England is planning on speaking at the Conference of Parties briefly. And she was heard to comment a couple days ago, she doesn't know who's coming. She doesn't know who she should be greeting and speaking to and acknowledging. And it's, I thought was a little bit funny because I know James Hansen's going to be there, possibly with a documentary filmmaker tailing him for several hours during part of that time. But and a lot of people are going to be there, but the Queen doesn't know specifically who or who the representatives are, probably from other countries more than participants who are advocating for things. But I thought that was interesting that she doesn't know, that just a few weeks away, she doesn't know who she's going to be greeting specifically coming to Scotland, because she does love her Scotland. But I don't know if anyone else has a further comment about that or insights.
I've got the as you can see, I've got it up on the screen here. Queen irritated by climate change inaction in COP26 buildup. I mean, I've been irritated for decades about our climate change inaction. That's for sure.
Yeah.
She's irritated by people who talk but don't do.
I like her cooling tower hat.
Okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah, it's definitely important. I think it's exactly right that we need to be less talk and more action. And certainly, go ahead. Yeah.
And her son, Prince Charles, and grandson, Prince William, have also spoken up in the past few weeks as well about the environment and Conference of Parties. Of course, Prince Harry also previously has been active about environmental things, even though he was chastised for whatever flying barefoot to Abu Dhabi or wherever it was he went to a few years ago to speak to rich people in his private jet at the time. But it's all they are concerned, and the Queen sees the long-term problem because she's been around for over 60 years on the throne now, paying attention to worldwide things. And this is a thread that keeps coming back and keeps coming back and keeps coming back. And she realizes that it's going to be a problem for her son after she passes, and her grandson eventually. So she'd like to see movement on this, I think.
That'd be wonderful.
Can't blame her.
Yeah. Thank you. Really great input there, Chris. Thank you. Thanks for this article. So let's. So we got video clips featuring the Queen's conversation during the opening of the Synod were picked up by the event's live stream camera, according to the Daily Mail. So definitely something to be looking at. We only know about people who are not coming. That's a great comment.
I'm not going. Does that count?
Yeah.
I wish I could go.
So John from Facebook comments, many nations have already said they're not coming, including Xi Jinping is rumored to not be coming. So we'll know whether or not China is going to negotiate on our climate goals. It definitely helps to have legit negotiations. Yeah, and China's been, they've been while they've been burning a lot of coal, they're trying to get people out of poverty. They're trying to get as many people to a modern way of living. About 1.2 kilowatts is a good Eastern or Middle European style of living. 2 kilowatts would be a little too much. That'd be American style living. We don't need that.
I could give you a little background on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I follow China a lot, and it's ironic what you said, because they have been generally making a really strong effort to cut down on the use of coal. They have made it the law that people cannot be have coal stoves in their house, and they've been raiding people's homes who've been burning coal, and they have been burning less coal because they got into a thing with New Zealand. It seems like Australia, because it seems to be a new Cold War brewing, and Australia, the president of Australia wanted to investigate Wuhan and whether that was in a lab or something like that. And they were real upset.
What a joke.
So they stopped the coal imports, and then they found out they couldn't heat their cities, and their factories had to stop. So they did about face without kind of saying that they were, So they're getting the coal, but they're not saying they are, but they're buying it. But it's just ironic that Xi Jinping, if they're not going to go to the COP, that he's going to do that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean,
well, China is committing to building about 160 nuclear reactors, and that's at least progress. When you are basically starving unless you till the fields by hand, you're going to pick up energy. That's kind of a controversial statement from some people, but that's mostly the perspective of the global north, the people who have energy, who understand what it means to survive because of energy, because of machines doing the work for them. And so the global south and inland China, the rural China, they're essentially doing manual labor instead of using energy. And so what the modern way of life, the way of eliminating global poverty, is to provide as much energy as possible. And so that's what it means to solve both the climate problem and to bring the end of global poverty. And the secret there, this is the real secret, is that if you eliminate global poverty, you will be reducing the birth rate voluntarily. No more one-child policy. China is now moving towards ending their, population explosion by modernizing, by giving everyone who is available the means to replace physical labor with automation, with mechanical labor. So that's really the way forward. And China, with their 160 nuclear reactors in the future, they're going to get it. And so it'd be great to have. Go ahead.
Yeah, and by the way, it's a population implosion at this point.
Oh well, in the West and the global North,
one-child policy.
Yeah. Oh, that one. Okay. Yeah, and that's sort of why they ended it. And they at least ended it for the Han Chinese. We don't know if they ended it for all China, but at least for the Han Chinese, they definitely ended that one-child policy about 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some as well.
Anything else on this topic?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've got something else if you don't mind. It's I guess I should mention for any viewers watching, I'm Chris Bergen from Iowa, and I'm following these things for almost 2 decades as a hobby, not as my job. But China is also they're working on a small modular reactor. But the thing is, a lot of their coal plants are around 500, 600 megawatts. And their long-term plan, and China does have a long-term plan. Maybe that's why they don't want to go to COP, because they don't want to get caught up in some short-term agreement, which is going to affect their long-term plan. But China's planning long-term that once in the next 6 to 10 years, when they get their small modular reactor figured out, possibly with the pebble bed modular reactor, that they are going to start swapping out the coal power plants with nuclear power plants at the same facility and just run the same steam generator. So that by 2040, 2050, China could be among the cleanest countries in the world as far as its electricity grid. Is the and that's on top of the 160 or so large reactors that they've been building over the past few years. Like every 2 months or so, they start a new reactor, and it takes them 2 years to build. So they have 6 reactors at a time under various levels of construction going on.
Mhm.
So
Amazing progress.
so yeah, so China has a long-term plan, but it'd be nice if they'd be at the COP. It'd be nice if they would say all this out front in front of everyone, rather than being kind of hiding behind minor articles here and there that people have to try to piece together. But and that'd be a kick in the butt, seriously, to most of the other countries to, like, get a plan, act on it, have a long-term goal, and then a bunch of little mini goals along the way to the big goal. But
they absolutely. I mean, this going there, they could shame the other nations because of so much they did. Instead, they're shaming themselves. I don't know. Sometimes I gotta wonder about the leadership of Xi Jinping there. But
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Okay, so if it's all right, I'm going to move on to the next article. This also to do with COP26 from our good friend Eugene, who is in the call, but he's on a mobile. So take your time responding, and everyone be ready if Eugene butts in, so that we don't talk over the person on the phone. So former U.S. President Barack Obama has confirmed he will attend the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow. He'll join Joe Biden and more than 120 heads of state in the conference, which gets underway on the 31st of October. So he's going to meet with young climate change activists and highlight their work around the world. This is really interesting, but I don't think that he's planning on meeting with the nuclear activists, unfortunately. Any bets there?
maybe he might surprise us.
He might surprise us. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? But yeah, I won't hold my breath.
I think the nuclear activists may gravitate towards him.
I hope so.
Within 100 yards or so.
We'll have Eric start an aria and really grab everyone's attention. That would be amazing. If you're unfamiliar, Eric Meyer, the founder of Generation Atomic, one of the better, pro-nuclear NGOs, is a trained opera singer. And if you hear, a blast of human unamplified vocals that just dominate the space, that'll be Eric. So keep your ears open. I can't wait to hear the dulcet tones, the baritone Eric Meyer take over COP26 before they kick him out.
And Eric was at COP22, if I remember correctly, if I have my numbers straight.
I think so. I think he was out there.
Yeah, he was. He went there, and they did the polar bear and everything, and a bunch of anti-nuclear activists were intimidating them and trying to get, just shut them up. And a bunch of climate activists, a larger group of climate activists, intimidated the anti-nuclear activists to defend his right to be there, which was an interesting story.
Amazing.
Yeah, Eric almost got arrested. I think it's partly because Ida of the Swedish gal from Thoughtscapism.com was there as well, and had her cell phone out and was filming it with her phone. So that helped diffuse things a little bit when they realized that there was a record of what was going on, and they were they were trying to get the police to arrest him for being a rabble rouser.
I guess that's a little astonishing.
Which is what he is, but how do you say? He makes good trouble.
Good trouble. That's right.
Yeah.
That is the goal. The call to action for all activists is you find good trouble wherever you go. Make sure that you have a purpose. You're not just screaming at the wind or tilting at windmills, but you want to be involved in good trouble. And Eric's definitely done that well.
Yes, he is. He's a great guy.
Great. So that'll be very interesting. I know that when Jay Inslee shows up to, he showed up to COP 24 or 23. He made a great big deal out of speaking out against the Trump administration, and that was one case where we did have nuclear on stage under the Trump administration. So for all their faults, for all the the garbage that they gave us. At least we got to see New Scale on stage there at one of the COP conferences. Unfortunately, he followed it up with, "Oh, we need to get the world to use American gas and American gas technology," and unfortunately, it looks like he's getting his wish, because the world is addicted to gas. It is so addicted to gas that we are seeing some fuel shortages. So let me go ahead and look up a gas fuel shortage. Yeah.
It's much worse in Europe than in the U.S. at the moment. It's my understanding.
Yeah.
We're awash in gas. The United States is awash in gas, but Europe not really.
Yeah, and I'll just add that a lot of people are realizing that methane gas is much, much more valuable as a chemical feedstock than it is as a burning up for electricity. So we need to cut down and eliminate in the next 15, 20 years, if possible, using methane gas for electricity. But using it for as a chemical feedstock might still be valuable to do through the end of this century. I don't know. I'm not saying it's the best way forward, but it may be the practical way forward if you're willing to acknowledge that slight difference.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's kind of dirty, but in a way, but we get a lot of methane from garbage, from sewers, from mines.
True.
That just goes straight into the atmosphere that could be used. And we need peaker plants. You know, you need peaker plants. I mean, you need to be able to, so I'll tell you something though. That is where our renewable grid actually might play a role, because you could turn on and turn off a windmill. You could turn on and turn off, a solar farm or sections of a solar farm, like turning like as if it's in your house and it's a switch. So, I mean, that might be a way to lower the amount of peak gas that you use.
Well, we can curtail them, but they've always been good at interrupting, but they interrupt, however, Mother Nature allows the wind and harvest solar.
Yeah.
That's depending on clouds, depending on wind. So we can't always turn them on when we need them, but when they happen to be on, we can turn them off, certainly. But
yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's but also there are a few designs of the small reactors, nuclear reactors, which are not here right now, but they are in like halfway through the stages of being improved. A few of them are expected to be excellent at load following. So we could hook them up with existing wind and solar, and you should have wind and solar and geothermal and maybe and some hydro. But and I think we need to build a lot of these out. And then in 20, 30 years from now, as they reach the end of each facility's lifetime, solar might be 25, 30 years. It might be a little bit longer than that, assuming there's no major storm that comes through, no tornadoes or anything. But then as we need to replace them, make the decision. Do we replace them? Do we replace solar with more solar? Do we replace wind with more wind? Or do we build a hydro dam? Because maybe in the Midwest US, we're getting more rain than we got in the 20th century. We build a couple of hydro dams in the Midwest that replaces, a third of all wind and solar in the Midwest. Now that's a decision to look down the road. That's the reason why we need good data going forward about who's producing what and when, and is that convenient, or are people willing to be inconvenienced to have their washer and dryer come on randomly when it's convenient for the wind and solar to be active.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, hydro has been in trouble all over the world because of climate. The Lake Mead in the Southwest is
Right.
so far down. I think the Hoover Dam no longer is able to produce electricity. I don't think anymore.
That's what
You
it
know?
sounds like. But in the Midwest, we're expected to get more rain over the next 40 to 100 years than what we got in the 20th century. So the Midwest could have a bunch of hydro dams spring up. Maybe not major ones like Hoover, but it could have 40 or 50, 10 to 50 megawatt dams spring up in the Midwest and supply the Midwest.
You're breaking up
Yeah,
there a lot.
And places that are a little bit dry already.
Okay. Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the tributaries, because that Mississippi River basin is enormous. It is all over the Midwest, and so what Chris is saying is that with increased rain flow in the Midwest, we will see flooding in the Mississippi, like legendary flooding levels. We will have 100-year floods every 8 or 9 years, according to the IPCC, even without considering the local impacts that Chris is talking about. We're expecting to have huge floods every decade, 100-year floods every decade. And if that localized effect is even more concentrated, that would be horrible. But it might also mean that we have to really get motivated and build more dams in the tributaries of the Mississippi.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. By the way, there are 8,000 dams in the United States, big and small, roughly. Of course, not that exactly, but I think most all of them are not don't have generators, which is. It seems like that's a real cheap way of getting electricity if you already got the dam up.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's about 75% aren't electrified, or more than that.
Yeah, it is a very big number.
Yeah, I thought it was more than that, but
I don't know the figure.
We need to be cautious
great majority.
About preserving fish in the streams and crawdads or whatever else might be there.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, it's a resource we can make use of, just that we shouldn't maximize the use of it. We shouldn't use 100% of the river flow. I think 30 or 40% of the river flow. And like I said, the whole Mississippi, Missouri River, Ohio River in the Midwest, there's a lot of potential there. Even if we use only 30 or 40% of the flow of water under the pull of gravity.
So
I mean,
go ahead. I was gonna say. Yeah, go ahead.
Whatever. I don't know. We play tag here.
We're kind of going away. With the great future of the American hydro system, that'll be amazing because we'll be able to dispatch that energy. However, today it's all gas, and so this winter the world will be fighting over something that's invisible, and yet rarely so vital, and in alarmingly shorter supply. And this is this article from Bloomberg Businessweek about Europe's energy crisis. Essentially, they're using natural gas for heating as well as power. So we've got this competition between heating and electricity from natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
And the result
should be electric.
Yeah, electric heating would be much better. And I wonder if I can find on Twitter, there's all these graphs of the gas price crunch. I'm sure I'll be able to find one really easy.
That's like 30% raise or something?
It's through the roof. It's really it's really amazing.
I was going to say I don't see how it's possible to heat your homes on wind and solar.
Well, if you have enough electricity, of course, you are able to heat your homes, but then you need to have that supply there, and so this is wholesale power prices amid the gas shortage. This is like the crunches that we see in Texas and California over the last decade that are now hitting globally. And that's just astonishing to think that this is now a global problem.
Is that the price?
Yeah, this is the wholesale power price of electricity per megawatt hour. So here it's down where it should be, you know, between 50 and 200 dollars a megawatt hour.
Oh,
That's about 300,
China.
400 right there. But then, boom, it rockets up way past 800. And then, wow, above 3,000.
That's from that problem with Australia. That's all about that. That's what I think, you know.
And same thing happened in Texas for 2.5, 3 days. But in Europe, they while natural gas prices are spiking up in Europe at the moment, and gasoline prices as well, petrol, excuse me, for Europeans. But at the same time, Germany is closing its dark coal plants. It's closing another, I think, two or four nuclear plants, I think, this December, right after Christmas time. And at the same time, so they've got less of the dependable electricity coming on the grid, and they'll be reliant on natural gas, which Germany's being supplied with natural gas from Russia.
Oh.
And Merkel called it renewable. Angela Merkel called it renewable. You know?
Really? I got.
Well, she's a chemist.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, but she's a politician.
Well, she's a politician for a few weeks longer, at least. But the whole pivot of let's get rid of our baseload energy in Germany while we're importing natural gas, and natural gas prices are going up. It exacerbates a problem that's already existed over the past several years in Germany and California, which are both well known for pivoting to renewables. That electricity just gets expensive, and some people can't afford that very well.
Yeah, you know, there's been a resurgence of the far right in Germany, and I wonder if the anti-nuclear policies of the German government have had something to do with that, because they have the most expensive electricity on the planet. Them and Denmark, both the most renewable heavy countries in the world, are the most expensive on the planet. And I think last I checked, I think it was like 300,000 Germans are having trouble paying their bill, their electric bill.
Wow.
And you know, I mean, that makes environmentalists an easy target for the far right, you know, and which is a scary thing, because it's really a scary thing. I've seen I've seen a documentary where like a Jewish person went to France. They said it was just so thick, the anti-Semitism was just so thick, they had to leave the country. They didn't feel safe.
That's amazing. That's really horrible. But we know that there's this mythology of you know, the purity of the Nordic bloodline. There's this sort of very old 18th and 19th century idea that there is such a thing as a perfect human, and the threat of nuclear contamination, radiological contamination, is seen as a threat to that pure bloodline. That's the reason we have LNT. Believe it or not, the idea that there is no safe dose of radiation is all about the defense of the perfect human germline. Is that they think there's some people out there, a little crazy, but some people out there think that their DNA is perfect, or think that someone's DNA is perfect, and we have to preserve that DNA. And so any contamination is going to disrupt the human germline. And this is a exercise in eugenics. It is based on eugenics, and that's what the theory, the LNT theory, is based on. I'm not even kidding. It's literally racism. It's literally eugenics. The reality is that there's no perfect DNA. Everyone experiences 100 times more mutations based on pure biological processes than any ionizing radiation or any contamination from ionizing radiation. And it's just astonishing that we've allowed this narrative about LNT to sort of dominate policy. And that's at the core of all anti-nuclear movements, is the fear of radiation. And whether they know it or not, the argument that there's no safe dose is based in eugenics.
Yeah, and by the way, too, I mean, and I mentioned this before, it's like split it. It's like how many, the argument really comes down to how many angels you can fit on the head of a pin. Because when you get to 100 millisieverts, I think per year, am I right about that? Which is a pretty, it's pretty high dose, I understand too.
Yeah, that's very high.
Okay, when you get to that point, below that point, it's like they cannot figure out whether LNT exists or not, because there's too much. It's just that the changes that might occur if LNT is real are so slight that they can't scientifically evaluate whether that's true or not. And on top of that, there's a lot of data showing that the low-level radiation might even be necessary and good for the body. And I wanted to say something else too. So it was interesting about what you said. I wonder if the fact that genetic modification was used in the vaccines for COVID has that kind of relationship as far as pure blood and everything goes with the far right too.
Oh my goodness! If you haven't heard of the pure blood movement on vaccines, you are a lucky person, because there are literal people who will say, "My blood is pure. I haven't had the vaccine." It's really astonishing to hear people argue that. So here I've put up on the screen. This is the weighted colon dose, and the reference here is long-term effects of radiation exposure on health. What year was this? 2015. So this is fairly recent, and this does include the Hiroshima cohort. But you will notice something very strange happening here. This is below 0.5 gray. That's about 500 millisieverts. And so around here is 250 millisieverts, and around here is 100.
Are you talking about that line in the middle? Where were you? Show that again.
Yeah, sorry. If you can see my little cursor right here, my magnifier cursor.
All right, there you go. Now we can see it.
Yeah, so there's 0.5 grays, and weighted colon dose is very close to the millisievert. The sievert is the imparted dose, and gray is the technical amount of energy emitted. But this is weighted colon dose, so it's fairly well controlled and fairly similar to a sievert. So yeah, 0.5 gray, I believe, is about 500 millisieverts. Someone correct me if I'm wrong there. And so this is getting below that number. And look at how noisy this data is. There's these results that are way above the trend line. How do you explain those results? There's some that are way below the trend line. Okay,
one thing, Carl. Which is the high doses? It's those big ones are the high doses
on the right. Yeah, and look at here, above 1.5, 2, 3, 2.5. These are some really consistent results, I'd say, up here. What are the results though?
This is the what are we referring to?
ERR, or this is the I think this is the epidemiological response rate is ERR. So epidemiological response rate of 1.0 would mean, we per 1,000 or 100 perhaps individuals, we expect so many of those affected to experience a negative health effect, like cancer, like cardiac malfunction, like something like that. And so this epidemiological response rate goes up linearly, literally, after 0.75 grays. Very strong correlation. There's that 95% confidence interval. That really works. That's doing really good work above 0.75. But if you split this chart in half and you evaluated that confidence interval on everything below 0.5 and everything above 0.5 grays, do you think that would be the same number? That's the lesson of LNT versus actually looking at the data.
All right. So one thing, though, just to clarify, we're talking about millisieverts and grays. Could you explain that a little?
Right. Chris, do you want to bump in?
I was going to say, grays are what is absorbed by the body. Gray is the dose received by and absorbed by the body. Sieverts are what is radiated out from the radioactive source material. So it's there is a difference, can be a difference in those numbers. Sometimes something can be radiated out but pass through our body. So it's not a gray because it passes through and goes out the other side. The gray number is misleading somewhat when you try to use it as an equivalent. It's an equivalent amount of energy, but gray is specifically the amount of energy named after John Gray, I think in early 1900s.
Yeah.
But gray is a very specific number about what is absorbed by the body and which does affect our DNA. But if it passes through our body, it doesn't affect our DNA. It passed through our body. It didn't hit anything. Because if it hit anything, it would have stopped and been absorbed. But or if it radiates in a different direction from us, then it's not going to hit us because it went somewhere else in the first place.
I got you. So if a small amount will cause very little damage and most likely go through, but if you have a massive amount of radiation, it's going to get hit. It's like almost like getting being in a sprinkle that you say outside when it's raining. What do they call that? A very light rain. There's a word for that, as opposed to a deluge.
Right.
Hitting you.
A sprinkle or a misting. But on top of that, there are layers of understanding about radiation, and a secondary layer of radiation is what type of radiation is it? Alpha, beta, gamma, neutronic. And neutronic, I'm sorry, it doesn't happen unless they're standing next to a reactor inside the shielding dome.
Right.
Really? It doesn't happen.
And even then, that neutron is not going to harm your body as much as a alpha or beta, because those are charged, right? When you think about it,
right?
So
yeah, the alphas and betas are charged.
Yeah, those charged particles going through your body are going to make more DNA breaks than a neutron. A neutron would literally have to contact an atom. And the worst part is if it actually contacts an atom, it might create downstream decay products. That'd probably be the worst. But if it's a fast neutron, unlikely, right?
Yeah, and the alphas, they can't penetrate your outer layer of skin. They cannot go through a human hair. They cannot go through a piece of paper. So it's really hard to get alpha. And so then you have to ingest it or get it into your eye or, inhale it. It's some dust that has, radioactive alphas being emitted within them. So that's not likely. Betas can go through your skin and they go what about a centimeter and a half, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong on that, but they go a relatively short ways. And then there's the gammas, and gammas can go pass through your body. Occasionally they will, and gammas are just light. They're beyond ultraviolet light. This really, really powerful, uptight light.
Yeah, the dangerous ones is the gamma. That's dangerous.
They're
potentially.
All dangerous. Yeah.
But yeah, they're all potentially dangerous, but in different ways. And the gammas are so tiny that that it is light which can pass through a mirror. the frequency is so tiny that the gamma can pass through a mirror. But if a gamma goes into your body, there's a good chance it'll pass out the other side of your body. Just occasionally it will be on the absolute perfect alignment. It'll enter your body, go into a cell. The water in your cell will slow it down slightly because water diffracts light. And at this beyond ultraviolet frequency, the gamma can be slowed down slightly or changed slightly through the water, and it will hit your DNA in just the right spot, in just the right angle, and it will damage your DNA. It is possible. But I need to mention that breathing oxygen damages our DNA much, much more than gamma likely would. I mean, you'd have to have a really, really strong gamma source, incredibly strong gamma
exactly.
source.
I was going to say that.
To damage your DNA as much as what you get damaged every day just by breathing oxygen.
Yeah.
And so yeah, eat your yogurt, like Jamie Lee Curtis says. And yeah, have our antioxidants and live healthy. But yeah, oxygen is more dangerous than gamma. And radiation is pretty much overblown. The only time I feel radiation is something to be worried about is if, like the first few days when they take a fuel rod out of a reactor. It's extremely dangerous then, deadly.
Yeah.
But after several weeks and a few months in the spent fuel pool, it ain't so dangerous. And by the time they put it in the spent fuel casks, they're warm to the touch, but they're not dangerous.
Did they take them out robotically or when that
Yeah.
happens?
Oh yeah,
There's no
long time
no
ago
human
they used
contact.
to do it by hand. Long time ago they used to do it by hand, with tools that would reach several feet. So they weren't actually doing it with their bare hands or anything on the product. But no, they've always had tools to use or thick gloves to use when they would touch that stuff very briefly. But again, people didn't die right and left from handling this stuff. A few died here and there, and those are all military applications of research and development. They were not civilian uses of nuclear power through a plant that put electricity on the grid. Not in the U.S. ever.
Yeah,
And
well,
in the UK, I'm not certain about the wind scale and some of that, if any of that ever got onto their electrical grid. But yeah, and in the U.S., the few accidents we had were never associated with electricity on the grid.
Well, it's the military-industrial complex, and so you know that yes, in fact, they did try to save a buck or two, right? So when Windscale was operating, they also sold the electricity from that military project to their UK consumers. Hanford,
They did,
the
okay.
N reactor also sold a little bit of electricity to the Washington consumers through the PUD. What was it called? Big PUD.
Yeah.
Up here in the Pacific Northwest, not TVA, BPA. Yeah.
wasn't Chernobyl a military reactor?
I don't recall,
too?
but I thought
Hanford was mostly weapons, yeah. And I think you're just dropped out. And to answer Gabe's question, Chernobyl, I'm not sure. It was an upscaled version of the same breeder reactor. So I've kind of argued this in the past, and it might be inaccurate, so I try not to argue it. But basically, Chernobyl is the same design as a plutonium breeding reactor, but Chernobyl itself was not directly involved in the production of plutonium for weapons, as far as we know. But
That's interesting. I thought breeders are not supposed to melt down. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, if not for the positive void coefficient, or negative, do I get those mixed up? Anyways, they had a bad void coefficient, the one that creates a feedback loop, and that's what caused Chernobyl to pop. And so without that, the bad void coefficient that causes a feedback loop, it would not be melting down. If it was something like EBR2, then the thermal expansion would cause the fuel elements to separate, and then the reactivity goes down. Chernobyl had the really bad feedback loop instead. But
By design, I guess.
Well, sort of by accident, and that was but by design.
Oh, indirectly.
Yeah. By design, they put it in a really bad state. They put it in a xenon pit. They tried to force it to come up to power as quickly as possible, even though they were in a xenon pit. And the HBO program on this is outstanding in its explanation. But we were talking about the dangers of radiation, and so I want to talk about. We actually experienced something like this, a very serious. The NRC calls this an extraordinary severe event. Where we sliced open a sealed source, and there's the door of UW Harborview, and so I've zoomed in to where that is. It's right there, the Harborview Research and Training Building, and this is on Google Maps. That's about a mile away from where I live, a mile or two actually. So this is in the middle of one of the biggest cities in North America, in the middle of Seattle. The highest population density is right here on, this is Capitol Hill and First Hill. This is our highest population density area. And this was about 2 hours of no containment from what they did to this thing. And if I can find it, the image of this cesium...
It's military.
This was a medical cesium source. So here's the example of the cesium chloride powder. 94.6 decay beta. Here's the source holder and the source capsule and the rod that keeps it, keeps it contained. Here's the container for where they're going to slice it open and keep that, keep the source intact and remove the lifting rod and the roll pin, but keep all of the rest of that intact. And it's a very long report. I should have written down the page number if I was going to try and show this quickly. But there's a really gory, there's them loading it. There's the misalignment. They actually accidentally had it sideways. There's the...
So what happened?
Oh, it's gory. So they sliced it open. There's this 26 to 50 millirem per hour. That is, let's see, I think you multiply by 100, so that's 26 to 50 grays per hour. So you gotta get out of that pretty quick. Maybe it's 2.6 to 5 grays per hour. So because my math is not so strong on these units that are unfamiliar to me. Okay, so yeah.
What was the end result? I mean, of that. In other words, they had a small accident.
Yeah,
what you're saying.
Yeah, and here it is. Here's the glory shot. So they and there you just saw the diagram where they cut into the wrong part and they started releasing contamination. And so that was the result. Is there were dozens of workers sent to the observation. They shut down the entire building. After 90 minutes, they cut off the HVAC. They sealed it up. They had put cordons off all around this area for months while the folks cleaned it up. And I heard rumors of like where the workers would hang out, and I tried to go meet up with them, but I never found them after work. One of my friends said that he ran into them up on Queen Anne, one of the bars on Queen Anne, but I never ran into them, unfortunately. So,
wonder how they're doing.
Well, we don't know because all of the workers declined to get a dose screening. And it's really strange to think about. Why would you decline a dose screening? I mean, maybe they knew something about radiation that most of us don't. That it's not as bad as we think. Because if
they also know the regulations.
Right. If they were given a very high body dose, they would be out of work. They'd be unemployable by the nuclear industry.
So wait a minute, they went back to work now.
Yeah, they went back to work. They didn't want a dose screening. They went back to work.
Yeah, all they needed were 2-3 days, maybe a week, to allow their DNA to repair itself through the antioxidant response within the cells.
Yep.
And yeah, they're basically ready to go back. Maybe they did raise their chances of getting cancer by 1% or 1.5% over their lifetime from whatever it was previously. Beer drinkers that maybe smoke occasionally.
Yeah,
or maybe not. It's,
if you have a 30% chance of getting cancer anyways, what's another 1%?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Dr. Wade Allison said this. He said, Professor Emeritus Oxford of Nuclear Physics. He said that we evolved in an environment that was 4 times more radioactive than it is today because the Earth is constantly decaying. Radiation is natural, and you know what gets me too? I mean, I saw this thing, this anti-nuke thing. They said waste is so bad because it takes 100,000 years for it to get down to background radiation levels. Well, volcanoes never get back to background radiation levels because the whole Earth, because that's coming from the center of the Earth, which is a giant nuclear furnace. So not having natural background radiations, quote unquote, natural background radiation levels is nothing unusual on the planet. It's just everyday occurrence.
Mm-hmm. And they're a little bit right. They're right that if we don't handle this waste responsibly, if we follow the regulations that we have today, it will take 100,000 years for it to go below the raw uranium ore, the background value of that uranium ore. But
I'm sure they're right about that.
Apply technology. We just have to do reprocessing, or even one of these lesser actinide separations gives us 2 orders of magnitude of improvement. Like, we just have to do a little bit of work, and then it's so much better.
Yeah. Most of it could very possibly be reused. I think 96%. Mm-hmm. But even aside from that, here's the thing. I think this is true of every toxic substance, that if you bury it in the desert, I'm in a really desert, that you don't have to worry again. There's no rain. There's no sun to break it down. It just is inert, whatever it is. I don't care how toxic it is. And to tell you the truth, ideally, I think all of our toxic waste should be sent into the like deserts. I'm not talking about like where they have those Joshua trees. I'm talking about like the deserts, like the White Sands Desert or something like that, where nothing grows, there's no rain.
Or not even,
no problem.
Forget desert. Let's see what our good friend Dr. James Konka has to say about where we should put our used nuclear fuel. I'm going to share this. I'm not going to play the audio.
So
but I'll just show you the link. I'll paste that in the chat here. There's a link to Jim Konka, a writer for Forbes, and what he is doing to educate us about where our nuclear waste actually should be. And it is this magical place called the Waste Isolation Pilot Project. And so here's Jim talking about WIP, talking about how the salt is literally going to form around it. But even what we have is that nuclear waste isn't going anywhere. It's in these really perfect steel and concrete containers. He was even brought up something I hadn't heard, that the welds are laser peened welds. They're not, normal noble gas welds. They go over those welds again with a laser to make sure they never corrode. He goes over the geography, the geology. He goes over quite a bit here, including there's one good diagram, which is like you could put all of the United States spent nuclear fuel in here. In fact, you could probably fit the world's used nuclear fuel in about 10 square miles under the WIP facility. And I'm looking for that. He had a really good picture, but I can't find it. Anyways, go check out the link. It's on the YouTube for Seattle Friends of Fission. Really great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. By the way, recently Michael Schellenberger had a debate. I don't know if you all saw it with the NRDC, who was the guy from the NRDC who was a nuclear physicist. It was interesting. It would be good to do a show breaking it down, tell you the truth, because I kind of felt that Michael, they were talking past each other. I don't know. Did either of you guys see it?
Oh, I see. Gordon put it up on his
Yes,
YouTube.
yes. It's interesting. It's interesting. But like, I didn't really like that. I think if you really break it down, I think that's where Schellenberger failed. I mean, they were both doing it. You know, they were both talking past each other. But if Schellenberger really should have broken down what this guy was saying, because he was getting really pants on fire, stupid, even though he is a nuclear physicist. You know, I mean, so.
Actually, it looks like Gordon has done a really good breakdown of this debate. It looks like he went in here and he interrupted them and provided sources and rebuttals for the stuff that the NRDC was saying. So
Good.
I'll put it.
I felt somebody should do it.
Yeah,
I thought somebody should do that, and well, he did it. So that's good. So yes, because
great. So there's that. And what time is it? It is 12:30. So let's talk about what's our final topic going to be. No one has decided to join us in the call-in, but I had just figured out just enough of how to set this up so that maybe someday, if you feel like calling in, whether it be to Discord or another piece of software that I've got, that'll give us the ability to sort of have our peanut gallery here with me in Zoom, and also our call-ins, and that'll be exciting.
I thought you had a guy on before. Somebody made a comment or other.
They're all in the chat. They're in the chat on Twitch mostly. We've got some great followers here on Twitch. Shout out to Trash
I've got an idea.
Shout out to Jethro Parsons. Go ahead, Chris.
I've got an idea to wrap it up. Go back where we started with the Conference of Parties. Could we pull in the IAEA assessment of how nuclear supports 9?
We have.
Hold
on. Victoria Olsen wants to get on to get in this.
Oh, cool. That's fine.
A friend of mine. Is anybody in a waiting room or anything?
We don't have a waiting room. She can just jump right in. The waiting room is in fact not enabled right now. So.
Yeah.
Send her the Zoom link if you like. If you know her, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I know her well. She's a great lady, man. Minutes. Or this might be from something else.
Okay, Chris, your topic was the IAEA nuclear assessment of some kind.
The sustainability goals, which are going to be a huge part of the COP talks coming up in Glasgow. And IAEA has 3 or 4 pages on its website about how nuclear supports 9 out of the was it 14? I forget how many sustainability goals there are now, but the nuclear directly supports 9 of those goals, a slight majority of them. And I think that's something that people need to take a second look at and understand why nuclear supports those goals, because it's the Conference of Parties is all about goals and what we are going to do in the next year or 5 years or 50 years to achieve those goals.
So it's saying here that nuclear satisfies zero hunger, good health and well-being, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, industry, innovation and infrastructure, climate action, life below water, life on land, and partnerships for the goals. What's partnerships for the goals? That's interesting. So partnership for the goals is achieving sustainable development cannot be done by any single organization or government alone. Partnerships are an essential dimension to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The IEA and its partners form important strands of the global sustainable development agenda by helping countries use nuclear science to meet their development targets and work together towards achieving SDG 17 on strengthening the means of implementation and revitalizing the global partnership for sustainable development. And I think what this is referring to is the IAEA does not build nuclear. There's a separate UN organization for that I just learned about, and I forget the acronyms right now. But the IAEA is an advisory and educational and verification entity. It doesn't even do any inspecting other than to verify the claims that countries make in regards to their non-proliferation practices. So it is not a primary any kind of enforcement agency. It's a fact checker and an educator. And so it enables partnerships by educating, by fact checking, by building up the infrastructure, the national infrastructure of anyone who wants to develop clean electricity with nuclear. It makes it, its only job is to build partnerships.
So who inspects the nuclear reactors to make sure that there's no proliferation going on?
Well, what the
regulators of the individual countries
right
do that, and they often will have an IAEA advisor or a witness, if you will, so that they can say, yeah, we see what they're doing and they're doing it right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're not doing it right.
They'll basically say, like in Iran, they'll say, we did not have proper access to verify this claim or something like that. And this is really scary, because then the global North's spies get involved. They come in and they will basically demand turning over documentation, or basically turning over the facilities to a UN inspector rather than an IAEA. They'll have an actual Security Council or an actual multinational partnership to verify compliance instead of the IAEA, who's like, yeah, we can't verify it, so what now? Really, really cool stuff. So there's the IAEA and the Sustainable Development Goals. And let me quickly find, there's the list of European countries who are trying to get nuclear involved in those. Because it's happened over the course of the last few months that that there's been this fight over sustainable development goals, and not everyone has been on board. There's, of course, been Germany and Austria. Very famously, Austria even said, they had the temerity to say, we who are not using nuclear, we don't need to meet your goals for decarbonization. We don't have to be that good because, we're hamstrung by not being able to use nuclear.
I think their goals have to be lower because of that. I think is what it was, I believe.
That's what they're trying to say,
but it's just it's an excuse. Same difference in a way.
It is. It's a silly excuse. They're not able to meet the goals because they've abandoned nuclear. If there's any proof, if there's any proof that nuclear is a force for climate change, it's Austria admitting defeat. They're basically they're basically admitting that they can't achieve it without nuclear.
Too bad, so sad.
And I'll just mention that Austria has just elected, like a week or two ago, a new chancellor, kind of like a president in the United States. So we don't know, I'm not aware of anyway, how strongly he's going to be banging the table with his shoe, so to speak, trying to be anti-nuclear. He might be a little bit quieter on the subject going forward, but yeah, historically over the past 10, 15 years, Austria has been a leader in anti-nuclear movements, officially as a political policy. And Germany as well is electing a new chancellor, but that won't be decided fully, it sounds like, for another week or two. but they've had their elections. Now they have to bicker about who's going to be in charge of the government and by how much and what coalitions they have. But it sounds like Angela Merkel is going to be heading into retirement soon.
Yes.
So sorry to see you go.
She's not anti-nuclear. She in fact stated that she's pro-nuclear, but this is what they want. This is what the German people want, so that's what they get.
Well, you know what they say: everything before the but doesn't count. Not anti-nuclear, but
yeah. That's so true. True.
Well, I hope everyone has had a great time chatting. We're gonna find someone to raid on Twitch. I'm gonna do someone to raid, and we're going to find a good point to play let's play the commercial. That one's a little bit longer, so it'll give us some room. And let's see.
We had to record that part for the commercial. That's how it was. Let's see something here.
Yeah.
Oh, did I send it to you, Carl?
Oh, the script. Yeah. Well, let's do the script. At
the outro.
point.
That's the outro.
Yeah. Let's do the script.
We should do it next Saturday. We should do it next Saturday.
Yeah, because I've got this new technology called Round, which is what I made you use last time. It gave me a really, really high quality video feed, but I made the mistake of not properly recording the audio. So let's just do it. Next Saturday we could do it. That's like 5 minutes at most, I want to raid our good friend Dan Simpson. Dan Simpson actually made a call to the Illinois legislature. He supported nuclear in Illinois live and on stream. He was an example to all of us because he had the power, because he was a constituent in Illinois, he could call and advocate for keeping Byron and Dresden plants open, and those are going to save millions of tons of CO2 at the low cost of $3 per megawatt hour. That's it, $3 per megawatt hour. The Clean Energy Performance Program is between $15 and $25, or even more if it's union labor. It's upwards of $30 if it's union labor for renewables. So we're throwing tons of money trying to solve this climate crisis, and here we had two wonderful zero carbon resources that are saved for the low cost of $3 per megawatt hour. So we're going to go ahead and raid Dan Simpson on Twitch right after I start up the outro. So thanks everyone on the Zoom call. Thank you. This is the Ecomodernist Society of North America. You can find us at esna.earth. That is a website. Just type it in, esna.earth. And want to leave us with any final thoughts, Chris or Gabe?
Bye.
All right. I'll go ahead and turn us over to that commercial. Thank you, everyone.
I want to speak to you about a new organization called the Ecomodernist Society of North America. I'm here because we are in the midst of a potentially monumental ecological crisis. It is only through a new environmentalism 2.0 that progress can be made. We believe that our only hope for human advancement and even human survival is through the exponential advance of science in the service of humanity. Ecomodernism is a new environmental paradigm which looks to reverse the fear of nuclear power and scientific progress in general. Ecology-based modernism is the most direct way to define it. Ecomodernism as a philosophy is described in the Ecomodernist Manifesto. We believe humanity should not be rejecting technological progress, but rather separate our impacts from nature through the responsible use of technology and urbanization. Urbanization is an unstoppable worldwide trend and the best solution to many environmental problems. It offers sustainable development for the human population and is a historic antidote to both deforestation and species extinction as humans move away from using wildlife as their protein source. Vertical, urban, high-rise architecture minimizes the use of land, resources, and energy, enabling walkable cities that facilitates the more efficient use of mass public transit as well. It must be emphasized that our support for technological solutions is definitely not about defending industrial polluters, nor does our defense of technology imply that we just need to sit back and let things take care of themselves. To the contrary, we believe that humanity is at a crossroads that severely threatens our future on this planet. I hope by now you understand the worthiness of our cause. Ecomodernism is really only a philosophy at this time. I want to talk to you about the necessity of turning it into a movement, which will be part of the larger environmentalist movement. For it is only through our presence and participation that there can be any hope of moving environmentalism in the right direction. Our aim is not to divide the environmental movement, but rather to multiply its numbers with the incorporation of many scientific and educational communities that is working to both build chapters of eco-modernist societies and support our growth worldwide.